Okay, we're on.
Greetings, everyone. Please give us 1 to 2 minutes before we start, just to allow folks to trickle in. All right, greetings, everyone. Thank you all for joining the 2nd District's Budget Town Hall. As a reminder, this is our first one for the fiscal year 2023-24, which we are soon to be starting by next week. I think before we start today, I wanted to give a little update to folks about how to use this tool. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see a bar with options. Please go ahead and select, there's a globe-like icon. Please click on it. And once you do, you would have 4 different interpretations. The first one will be for ASL. So if you need that service, please click on it. You got to turn it on in order to get that service. For every participants to this call, please, if you prefer English, select English. If you prefer Spanish, please select Spanish. And if you prefer Korean, please select Korean. So we want to make sure that everyone selects the language of preference or the option that will allow them to enjoy this event. All right, if we can go back to that slide, just want to make sure that as people trickle in, they're reminded. Again, I wanted to give a quick logistical set of logistical information to everyone joining. I think we have about 105 people on right now. As you joining in, please make sure that you select at the bottom of your page. You will see a bar with icons. Please select the globe-like icon to get the best interpretation that works for you. For everyone who prefers English, please select English. For everyone who prefers Spanish, please select Spanish. And for everyone who prefers Korean, please select Korean. We also have an ASL option for those who need those services. So please, in order for you to enjoy this event and get the full benefit of it, make sure that you select the globe-like icon and select the option that will allow you to follow this event throughout. All right. So we're going to I'm going to now introduce you to the budget team for SD2. I am Kofi Kwasi, and I'm blessed and privileged to serve you as the Senior Budget Deputy for Supervisor Holly Mitchell. And then also as part of our team, we have Maeve Giza, who's our Assistant Budget Deputy, and Vicky Way, our Staff Assistant for the budget team. I'm seeing that we have about 110 people now, 111. If you just joined, I will give a quick logistical information to say, at the bottom of your screen, there's a bar with multiple icons. Please select the globe-like icon, because it will allow you to select the best option for you to enjoy this event. In other words, if you prefer English, please select English. If you prefer Spanish, please select Spanish. If you prefer Korean, please select Korean. If you also prefer sign language, American Sign Language, please select that option. We want to make sure that everyone who participates in this event can benefit from it. All right, and I'm seeing people joining on the chat. Again, one last reminder before we move on to the next slide. If you just joined, please make sure that you go to the bottom of your screen. There's a bar with multiple icons. Please select the globe-like icon, because it will allow you to select the best language that works for you. If you prefer, if you want some American Sign Language to be added as a service to this experience, please select American Sign Language. If you prefer English, please select English. If you prefer Spanish, please select Spanish. And if you prefer Korean, please select Korean. Thank you. So earlier I was introducing you to the budget team, which includes me, thankfully, or I'm grateful to be here. I'm Kofi, and I'm Senior Budget Deputy. We have, as part of our team, Maeve, who's the Assistant Budget Deputy, and also Vicky Way, who's the Staff Assistant. Before we start off today, I wanted to gauge the level of knowledge that you all have with the county budget process. So my question to you will be, how are you familiar with the budget process? And so while you think about it, I will give you a code to enter so that you can enter the question. All right, I have 1, 2, somewhat. So to participate on the poll, we have a link in the chat. If you wouldn't mind clicking on it, and we'll help you. I know some folks are responding in the chat, but it would be great if folks could respond on the link that we just shared in the chat. So please use the link in the chat and to participate in the poll. How familiar are you with the county budget process? All right, people are coming in. We have 127 participants. So I want to make sure that we have 127 responses. Without going back to the interpretation slide, given that most folks, a lot of folks joined, please, if you just joined this meeting, go to the bottom of your screen. You will see a globe-like icon. Please click on it and select the language, your language of preference. If you prefer ASL, please select ASL. If you prefer English, please press English. If you prefer Spanish, please press Spanish. If you prefer Korean, please press Korean. Now, the question that we are asking, if you just joined, is how familiar are you with the county budget process? And in order to respond, please look into the chat. We have a link on there that you can use to provide your response. So we have 128 participants. We don't have 128 responses yet. I think, yes, you can see the options for languages if you are on your phone. All right. Well, thank you all so much. It looks like the majority of the participants are somewhat familiar. I hear, wait, please. You want to provide your response? All right. Well, thank you so much, for your participation. Thank you for telling us how familiar you are with the budget. It looks like only 6 of, those who responded are actually familiar with the process. So without further ado, I will give the floor to our fearless leader, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, to start us off for the meeting.
Hope can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for carving out some time to participate in what I think is a critical element to governance at any level of government, and that's the budget process. So I appreciate you carving out some time at the end of a Monday. Was your Monday like mine? I hope not. To participate and join in. I see all the hearts. Thanks for the love. I hope that's from not just my staff, but from some of y'all as well. Hello, I see you all saying hi in the chat. So thank you very much. And thank you, Kofi, for setting this up. I love these poll questions because it really helps us as a staff and a team level set so we understand what people know, so we can really lean in to make sure that we are bringing you critical information so you can be an active part of governance for your county. You all know this is a big county, the largest in the country, 10 million people with a $44 billion, that's with a B, $44 billion budgets. That's larger than many states, probably most states, and larger budgets than many countries. So we've got lots of resources, but we also have great need. So prioritizing how we invest those resources are very important. So on Tuesday of next week, our Chief Executive Officer with the county will present what they call the recommended budget for next fiscal year, 23-24. And I have always lived by the notion that budgets are a reflection of our values, which is why we're here today to hear from you all and understand your perspective and your priorities. The reason we do it this way and provide a little bit of training to make sure that you are giving us your perspective in the appropriate context. So that's why we do these budget town halls. I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish so far with prior budgets, including infusing our anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion initiative in how we do our budget. We've launched 4 new county departments: Justice, Care, and Opportunities, JCOD, our Aging Department, Youth, and our Economic Opportunity. We implemented LA County's Breathe program, our guaranteed income program, which is the largest of its kind in the country. I'm very proud of that. And of course, maintaining our commitment to care first, jails last. And that is seen really across a variety of departments, from mental health to probation, across the board. So with all that said, you need to understand, why it's important to me that we spend so much time on the budget. because I experienced several really painful years when I served in the California legislature, where because the state was in effect broke, and unlike the federal government where you can overspend when you don't have the money, the state and local government, we can't overspend. So when we have a deficit, the only thing we can do is cut. And if we're cutting at the county level, we're cutting important critical services that my constituents, you all need. So I want to avoid that at all costs. I don't ever want to live through that experience of having to cut services and programs that I know are life-sustaining, the kinds of programs and services that, which is the reason why I ran for public office in the first place, to expand them. You all know my history, that I came out of Crystal Stairs. To have come from Crystal Stairs and had to look at and vote on budgets that cut childcare was heartbreaking. And I never want to be in that position again. I just got to tell you, it's too hard. So, I'm concerned about our budget when I look at some of our current economic trends. I think that we've had some really healthy budgets these last couple of years. Ironically, thanks to COVID, the federal government came in and provided funding to the state and local governments that was unprecedented. It gave us resources to do things we've always wanted to do, like guaranteed basic income, but didn't have the resources to do. Well, the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan dollars were one-time dollars, and they've ended. So we have to look at trends to really figure out where we're going to be. For example, in the governor's January budget, he forecast a $29 billion deficit in the state budget. We'll see what comes out in his May revise. So, how do we forecast and try to figure out what the health of the county's economy will be? Well, we're looking at a lot of factors. 4 banks collapsed in recent weeks. We have to figure out why and what's going on in the county and the state's economy that allowed that to happen. Silicon Valley and other industries are reducing their workforce. The Federal Reserve is going to increase interest rates. So the cost of doing business and the cost of buying homes is going to increase because of the interest rate. Just last week, the jobs report showed a slowdown in hiring nationwide, and inflation is high. So those are some of the economic indicators we have to look at. The primary source of income to the county's budget is through property taxes. We've passed some initiatives that have increased sales taxes like Measure H and Measure HHH to increase resources into the county general fund for specific needs. And so if property taxes are late, we don't have, new home sales or home sales are kind of wavering, that impacts our property taxes and the county's ability to grow our budget. So all of these facts tell me that what we should be doing is to be diligent and to focus on our fiscal health, and to not only continue to be bold and innovative in our programs and our improvement of programs, but to be smart and strategic. I remember being a little kid, and if my mother still had checks in her check registry, I was like, oh, we still have money. And so she would have to tell me, just because I have checks in my checkbook doesn't mean I still have money in the bank. And I actually said that in the board meeting last week. And so we have to be smart and prioritize our funding, because I don't want to expand or jumpstart new programs that we're not in a fiscally sound enough position to continue indefinitely. So that's why it's important that we have this conversation. And just if you follow the actions at the board, next week, I'll be introducing a motion to really do just that, help the board prioritize our own bold ideas and programs so we can continue to fund them and support them over time, right? Keeping in account the fiscal changes that might be looming on the far and near horizon. So let me just take a quick moment to acknowledge the community advocates and residents that have been working with my office prior to tonight. Thank you for being at the table to really help us navigate and have some tough conversations on how the county budget can uphold our commitment to alleviating poverty, how we invest in cares first and jails last, and ultimately create a thriving community where we can raise our families with dignity and grow old. Raise our families to thrive and grow old with dignity. That's what we want to do. So your support with helping to inform the budget process is a key component from my perspective to how we continue to build back equitably. So that's why we've gathered you tonight. I want you to understand my perspective when you hear me speak publicly about we've got to prioritize. I want you to understand why, because I don't want to be in a position where we look up and we can't fund critical services just because we didn't prioritize, we didn't plan, we stuck our head in the sand and pretended like we didn't see perhaps another recession coming our way. I don't want to be an alarmist and say the building's on fire, but I'm also not going to be in denial about our fiscal limitations and how the budget can be impacted and change in the next couple of years compared to what we've experienced. So, yep, our goal is to build back equitably. With that, I'm going to popcorn it back to Kofi to walk us through the rest of today's agenda. And again, thank you all for spending your time and joining us to have a conversation about your county's budget. Thanks, Kofi.
Thank you so much, Supervisor. I hope you guys see, the good energy here, right? That's why I'm saying I'm privileged to be working in this office. I have an amazing boss. So if for those of you who are new, who just joined, I think we have now about 148 people. Please go to the bottom of your screen and then select the globe icon to see the interpretation that best suits you. We have ASL, we have English, we have Spanish, and we have Korean. And please note that if you're joining and you prefer English, don't assume that, you just join and then, things are gonna work. Please select the globe icon and select English. Thank you all so much. All right, so thank you again, Supervisor. Now we're going to talk to you. We're going to show you a video about the county's budget process. Earlier, you guys had answered our question about your familiarity with the county budget process, and only 6 of the probably 60 who answered the question at least had an idea or knew about it. So thank you, Vicky, for playing that video for our audience to have a high-level idea of how the county budget works.
Los Angeles County is the nation's largest municipal government, with Los Angeles County is the nation's largest municipal government, with more residents than most states, and a multi-billion-dollar budget that's bigger than that of Kansas, Montana, and Vermont combined. We work all year long to build a budget that meets the needs of our 10 million residents. Here's a look inside the process. We start in January, when county departments submit their budget proposals to the CEO. The CEO evaluates those proposals and makes recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. State law requires the county to always balance its budget. And just as with the household budget, that means making hard choices based on how much funding is available. County funding comes primarily from 3 sources: federal, state, and locally generated revenues like property and sales taxes. Most of this money is restricted to support specific programs that the county is legally required to provide, like public health care, assistance to children and families, keeping our communities safe, and running fair and accessible elections. The budget also funds culture, education, and recreation, including world-class museums and beaches, an expansive park system, and an extensive network of community libraries. It also supports programs to address some of our toughest social problems and sets aside rainy day funds to keep services running when times get tough. It's all guided by the policy vision of the Board of Supervisors, including strong commitments to anti-racism, equity, and social justice. These values, established through a set of board-directed priorities, shape the recommended budget, which the CEO submits to the board for consideration in mid-April. In May, the board holds public hearings so that residents and other stakeholders can voice their opinions on the budget. Next comes the adopted budget, which is traditionally approved by the board before June 30th. And finally, the supplemental budget in October to incorporate state, federal, and other allocations. Once approved, the county's final adopted budget becomes its spending plan. That's a quick snapshot. For more information, visit ceo.lacounty.gov and click on the Budget tab.
Thank you so much, Vicky. And the next slide essentially summarizes the video that you just watched, through a chart. But before I go on and talk to you about this chart, I would like to remind you that if you just join, please look at the bottom of your screen. There is a globe-like icon. Please select it. And you'll be able to select the language that best suits you or fits you for this presentation. Again, we want you to get the full advantage of this presentation and this experience. So if you prefer American Sign Language, you can select that. If you prefer English, you can select English. If you prefer Spanish, you can prefer Spanish. And if you prefer Korean, you can select Korean. Isela, can you say that in Spanish for Spanish-speaking folks who just joined and are not on the translation?
Sí, para los que nos acaban de acompañar, buenas tardes. Todos ocupan seleccionar un idioma que pueden encontrar en el icono que parece globo y ahí pueden seleccionar su idioma. Gracias.
Thank you, Isela. And Daniel, can you please, say that in Korean for the folks who just joined and are not on, on a translated channel?
I don't think Daniel is logged on as a presenter.
Oh, he's not?
We would need the interpreter.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Thank you all. So essentially what you just learned from this video is captured in this chart. So it all starts around October when departments put together their budgets. Then in November, so department CEO, budget class, and CEO analysts work together on the budget. And then they issue the departmental instructions in November, and in January, the department submit the budget request to the CEO, who analyzes it. And about 2 to 3 weeks from budget submissions, meets, holds budget meetings or budget hearings between the CEO and county departments. Then, the CEO has internal deliberations, and then in April, we have the recommended budget. And as the supervisor told you earlier, next week, Tuesday, will be the recommended budget, where the CEO will provide the county with a recommended budget. And then we have public hearings in May, which is an opportunity for all of you to come and provide your perspective on the budget. And by law, the county has or must take in public comment and also written comments. So you will have about a week as a public to provide your written comments for the county and the CEO to consider those proposals into the county's budget. Then in May, we have the final changes request, and in June, the board deliberations, and we adopt the budget. And because the state budget is effective from July 1, and the federal budget is effective, I think, September 1, if I'm not mistaken, then it takes time for the county to know what the final numbers that are coming from the state and the federal government, which is why we have in October the supplemental budget changes, which includes those additional resources from the state and the federal government. And with that information, we finalize the budget. So I hope this information, the video that we showed earlier is available on the CEO's website, which I will put into the chat shortly. So thank you. Without further ado, we're going to move on to the next part of this budget and really briefly talk to you about our victories from last year. So last year we came to you and we talked to you about our priorities, and throughout the year we worked with the CEO. We did everything we could, and I'm just highlighting about 6 things that we did last year. So we secured about $30.5 million in ARPA fund for the Guaranteed Basic Income Program. It was a total of 46.8 million. We also had 36 million and 146 positions with ongoing funding for a program to provide mental health urgent care services in jail. We also increased the bed capacity at ODR from 2,200 to 2,950. We had $10.5 million for Park After Dark. We had $194 million for total, for a total Measure H budget of $683 million for various Measure H impacted programs, which includes RV encampment and permanent housing. And we also had $65.6 million from ARPA, to allocate towards to address the digital divide in the county. So these are our victories from last year. Now we're looking forward to the 23-24 budget here. And for that, we're going to have our senior deputies from the team come to address each of you guys and tell you about what they want, what will be their priorities for this year's budget. And we will start off with Lily. Lily, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Kofi. And can everyone hear me? Yes, okay. Well, as Kofi said, I'm Senior Deputy for Transportation and Infrastructure for Supervisor Mitchell. My portfolio includes all of the works that the Department of Public Works does on transportation and related infrastructure issues, as well as internal services and the LA Metro Board, which we aren't talking about today. But our priorities for the county budget are really in 2 categories: street safety and the digital divide. On street safety, the supervisor has purview over unincorporated LA County streets in the 2nd District. And what we know about our streets in the 2nd District is that traffic crashes are one of the leading causes of death for kids in Los Angeles County. We know that people of color are killed at disproportionate rates from traffic crashes. And we know that the 2nd District is home to the highest incidences of street takeovers and street racing. So Supervisor Mitchell has made street safety one of her top priorities for transportation and infrastructure. And so this year's budget demonstrates a slight loss of revenue in the funding that we rely on to deliver street safety projects. We've taken that news and really pushed our departments to prioritize funds based on need, moving away from a traditional divide by 5 approach, meaning divide the pots of funding that we have by each of the 5 different supervisorial districts, and into an approach that prioritizes where we're seeing loss of life in our highest impacted communities. We're also pushing our Department of Public Works to be more creative with fewer resources. So thinking about quick build infrastructure improvements that make it a little bit more inconvenient to do donut holes in intersections. We're pushing Public Works to really be creative about that approach. On the second priority, delete the divide, we were very successful last year in securing, as Kofi mentioned, $65 million for building out broadband access in our unincorporated LA County communities. I'll just note that digital equity in the 2nd District is of one of our top priorities, because in some of our communities, as much as 30% of our households lack reliable home internet. And we believe Angelenos have a fundamental right to reliable, affordable broadband in their home. So this year, in addition to leveraging the $65 million we secured last year, Supervisor Mitchell is really focused on making sure that this year's budget build out staff capacity to actually deliver on that 65 million. And as it stands, and we aim to change this, as it stands, fully funding and staffing the office that would deploy those funds is one of our critical unmet needs for this year's budget. So our office will really focus on ensuring that that work is fully funded. And that's all I have. Thanks, Kofi.
Thank you so much, Lily, for sharing. Now we're going to go on to a survey. So out of the two priorities that Lily shared, which one to you is the most important? And while people are taking the survey, please, if you just joined this meeting, go to the bottom of your screen. You will have a lot of icons. Select the globe-like icon, and please click on the language that you prefer. It could be ASL, it could be an ASL and English, it could be Spanish, it could be Korean. We want to make sure that you have the, you get the best out of this experience. So we're providing those services for you. So please take advantage of them. Thank you. So we have about 151 participants. And so far, we are just over 37 responses. And street safety is winning it. All right, I'll give it 10 more seconds for folks to continue responding. Oh, yes. I'm also queuing Daniel to talk about the globe icon in Korean.
Thank you, Kofi. 예, 다시 한번 한국어로 번역이 가능합니다. 그래서 글로브 아니면 지구 버튼을 클릭하시면 한국어 번역을 선택하십시오.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, we have 51 responses. All right, so we're gonna move on to the second question. It looks like so far street safety is the most important. So which other third option do you think we should prioritize? So I think I have someone who's asking how to vote. Maybe we can put the link once more on the chat. So Lily shared two priorities. Street safety and the deleting the digital divide. So which other issue do you think is important that we didn't talk about, or that we should think about or pay attention to? So I'm gonna give it about 30 seconds for folks to answer. We have the link on the chat if you want to participate in the. Okay, and just to be clear also, it's about, just on the transportation area. Because thank you. We have 14 responses. Awesome. Thank you all. And just FYI, even if, we move on and then we haven't seen your response, it's okay, because the team is gonna keep the answers from these surveys, down the road. All right. So thank you so much for answering, our surveys. And thank you again, Lily, for talking to us about your priorities for this year. Now we're going to move on to our next senior deputy, who is Carolyn Torosis. Carolyn, it's your show.
Thank you so much, Kofi. Hi, everyone. My name is Carolyn. For those of you who I haven't met, I am the senior deputy for Economic Opportunity and Workforce Development here on Team Mitchell, covering all areas around our full equitable economic recovery from COVID-19, ensuring that we're lifting up those who have been hardly reached by government, working on our poverty alleviation initiative, as well as high road jobs for our workers. How are we recovering back with equity and promoting opportunity and access to jobs that provide a family sustaining wage, as well as entrepreneurship and business opportunities in communities that haven't traditionally been served by government or reached by traditional banking and lending opportunities. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thanks. So the two priorities I want to highlight for you all tonight, both ends of the spectrum here, both protecting our workers and supporting our small local businesses. As many of you know, just first off on protecting our workers, LA County is the wage theft capital of the United States. Over $25 million are taken from workers every week in wages that are earned but not paid. And so we are actually in the process of standing up an Office of Labor Equity. And we are asking you all to weigh in on this. We are asking our CEO to prioritize that Office of Labor Equity because we know there's actually reports from the Black Worker Center, from the National Employment Law Project, that local enforcement is actually more effective, and it's actually more effective in protecting communities of color. This Office of Labor Equity would consolidate and centralize the county's ordinances, initiatives, and functions related to worker protection. And it would really be that one-stop shop for our workers. There would be targeted outreach to industries where we know there are high incidences of workers' rights violations and targeted enforcement programs. And we do believe that this will lead to more equitable outcomes for our workers who have been marginalized. Secondly, on supporting our small local businesses, we know that our small business community has been hardest hit by the pandemic. The supervisor has been laser focused on getting grants out, not loans, but grants, money in the hands of our businesses. We currently have open a $54 million economic recovery grant program. And what we've learned through that is that it's really, really important that there is hyper local outreach. We can create all the programs here in the county. And in fact, there are over 15 American Rescue Plan programs dedicated to economic recovery. But if our businesses and our workers, but in this context, our businesses don't know about our programs or don't know about the legal assistance that we are offering or the entrepreneurship opportunities that we are scaling up, our businesses that have been hardly reached, again, will be hardly reached, and they will not have access to these opportunities. And that is not an equitable recovery for us. So we are really focusing all of our energy into our county's new Department of Economic Opportunity that the supervisor mentioned at the top of the meeting. And this unit would be really consolidating all of the outreach, technical assistance, legal assistance, and access to county programs, services, grants, contracting opportunities. We've created an equity in county contracting initiative, making sure that our businesses know how to access over $6 billion of goods and services that we contract out every year, making sure that our businesses are registered as preferred small business vendors, et cetera. So we want to make sure that everyone can start, grow, and thrive in the county. And we want to make sure that the outreach is equitable, that we are reaching communities that have been hardly served, that have not had access to these opportunities. And we're really going into communities with street teams, and partnering with hyper-local CBOs beyond just the traditional methods of outreach. That is how we are going to reach the folks that need our help the most. So we are prioritizing that along with direct financial assistance for our business community. So with that being said, those would be the two priorities. There's many others to mention. I saw someone mentioned an equity fund in the chat. We're actually standing that up as part of a motion the supervisor did through the cannabis tax that we're hoping to collect. So lots of other things in the works, but these are our two priorities for this year and would love your feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Now we're gonna go on to a survey and just wanted to remind folks who are joining from their phone, you can go on to, give me 1 second, menti.com and use the code 694-8799. So if you're joining from your phone to participate in the surveys, you can go to menti.com, it's spelled MENTI.com, and you can use the code 6494-8799. Thank you. All right, we have 29 responses. Come on, let's have more. And so far, supporting our small local businesses is winning it. And then for everyone, we also have it on the chat, menti.com, and the code in order to participate. And we also have a link on the chat for those who are joining from their laptop. All right. Thank you. So, protecting our workers is coming higher. All right, so now we're going to go on to the next question. Again, there is a link on the chat to participate in the survey, and also in the chat, if you're joining from your phone, we have information on how you can participate in the survey from your phone. Menti.com and code 694948799. All right, so the second question is, is there a third economic development issue that you as an audience think we should consider or think about? Looks like we have 2 answers. All right, 3. Of course, understood. And even if your response, we're not able to show it, please keep answering, because the data from the survey we will keep that data for, to inform our policy making and whatnot. So even though your responses don't show, we still will use the survey. So thank you for your patience with us. All right, we have 15 responses.
And I did pop a link to the chat to the currently open micro business and small business grant opportunities, because there was a question about where people can go to get those. And I will also put my email in the chat for anyone who wants to contact us after.
Thank you so much, Carolyn, for this. All right. Thank you all so much. We are now going to move on to the next presentation, which is from our Health and Wellness Senior Deputy, Yolanda Vera. Yolanda, it's your show.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yolanda Vera, and I'm the Senior Deputy for Health and Wellness for Supervisor Mitchell. And next slide, please. It's hard to capture all the various initiatives that we're taking that fall under health. My responsibilities cover mental health, public health, and physical health. But we also partner quite a bit with the other deputies because a lot of the issues overlap. But we try to categorize some of the initiatives in 2 buckets. One is health and mental health services for seriously mentally ill individuals. That can be done in a variety of ways. One is that we're looking at creating a robust network of restorative care villages. These are places where we treat seriously mentally ill individuals and give them the intensive services they need, whether it's mental health, whether it's urgent care services. It may include substance abuse services that they need to get back on their feet. It could include as well, too, just beds for seriously mentally ill individuals. And there's all different levels of beds for many of you that follow mental health. Some are locked, some are unlocked beds, but they're places where people can get care in a place which is safe for them and safe for the community. It could also mean really taking a look at Care Court. Care Court is a brand new state initiative that was just passed this year, and it's coming to Los Angeles County. We're going to start to take baby steps to implement it by the end of this year in a phased way. And essentially, it's an approach that allows the court to take individuals who don't have the ability to care for themselves and use the court to require the Department of Mental Health to give them services that they need to stay safe. It could also include street outreach, other services like mobile response teams. But that's the first bucket, is really taking a deeper look at things we can do for our most vulnerable individuals, both their health needs and their mental health needs. The second bucket I wanted to talk about is an umbrella of services, health, public health, as well as mental health, focused on our youth. Our youth are experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety. Living in modern times is difficult. The great news is that we're talking now about mental health, but now we've got to step up and provide some of the services that they need. So under this umbrella, I would put a full range of services for our youth, starting with doula services. We know African-American women are at highest risk for mortality and bad birth outcomes. There is an opportunity to really try to prop up doulas, who are people from the community that can be there as mentors and help guide women when they're going through the birth process. It doesn't have to be only Black women, but it's really trying to think of how can we support our doulas so our infants coming into the world get the best care, their moms get the best care as well too, and they start off with a fresh start. It could also mean mentorship programs. The supervisor did a motion to launch a mentorship program for at-risk Black girls, but also to launch it for at-risk youth. And this is taking people from within the community who can be mentors, who really want to dedicate themselves to standing with a young person as they go from childhood to adulthood. Various different models. It's going to take funding in order to really support it and make it as robust as possible. And then it could also include an example, transition age youth. We have a lot of teenagers who are entering adulthood. They need a hand. Some of them may not have had support as they were growing up. They might need access to mental health. They might need access to substance abuse. They might need just a tutor who can help them get through high school, link them, help them understand how to apply for scholarships, link them to jobs, etc. And so propping these up and more of them up in the community. So those are the two categories of things. Really look forward to your feedback on what else we should be doing and how we can do those things better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. So now we're going on to the surveys. And the first question is, which of the two priorities is the most important to you? Again, if you go onto the chat, we have a link on there to participate in the survey.
Kofi, I
yes,
hate
go
to
ahead.
interrupt you. I just noticed that the two categories in the survey don't reflect the two categories.
Ooh, okay. Other services, let me make sure. Thank you for doing that.
Sure. The first column was services for seriously mentally ill individuals, and the second was preventive services for our youth.
And other services for our, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide for the surveys. And then the first question that I have is, which issue do you think in a health area, health and wellness area, which issue do you think we should focus on, or that are important to you but Yolanda didn't mention? So again, to participate in this survey, we have the link on the chat. And also, if you're joining from your phone, we have Menti. You have to go to menti.com and enter the code. 1 second. (6494-8799). 6494-8799. If you're joining from your phone, you can go to menti.com and enter that code. Or you can go on the chat and click on the survey link to join. Thank you. We're gonna give it about 20 more seconds, 25, 30 more seconds for folks to answer, and then we'll go to the next policy update. Oh, okay. Well, we were saying that the prior slide didn't actually have the questions that like the items. Okay. Yeah, so it says, which third issue do you think we should prioritize?
Kofi, it might be helpful for the
Pardon?
interpreters is if you read maybe just the highlights, because for the interpreters, we don't
Oh, I
really
mean,
intend.
she means to read all these items. Got it. So
Yes,
we
don't
have,
intend everybody to read every single one. So maybe Kofi, if you highlight some and then the interpreters can do the ones that you highlight.
got it. Thank you. So we have on here Veterans Clinic. We have mental health. We have housing should also be considered. We have senior care, especially solo seniors. We have more health services for the unhoused. We have elderly care and caregivers, mental health, veteran services, financial barriers, and wait times to receive assistance. All right. So we're going to go on to the next policy item, which will be our justice updates, and we're going to have our senior deputy, John Matthews.
Thanks, Kobe. Hey, good evening, everybody. Really thankful that you all decided to spend your evening with us. My 1-year-old is demanding bedtime, so I may be shorter than I planned. I think the order is really great because going after Yolando, our teams work so closely together. I should back up. I'm senior justice deputy. That means I handle all things public safety. Yes, baby. All things public safety, including the 10 departments. Some of you will think of the sheriff's department, the probation department, but in the county's Care First model, we also have the Justice Care and Opportunities Department and the Department of Youth Development. So the supervisor, when she spoke about our priorities and being a Care First county, we really mean that. Last year, we had some wins, but we know that there's still a crisis in our jails, that people are dying in our jails. Our people are dying in our jails. So we are going to continue to advocate for housing and services through the Office of Diversion and Reentry. It's a wildly popular program. DAs, public defenders, social workers, folks in the community really support it. So we think we should continue to emphasize that that's a priority for our office. In addition, the Department of Youth Development, we know how important our youth are. The supervisor talks about our time at Crystal Stairs and the importance of making sure our dollars go to developing our youth outside of a carceral law enforcement model. So we're really planning to prioritize the Department of Youth Development. I see community advocates that have been working on these issues for years. I see Derek, I see other folks. So please connect with us because we want to work collaboratively. And yes, yeah, baby. Hold on, Natalia said she wants, I got you, baby. Say hi. She wants to present and she's upset. So thank you, everybody. I think one thing we should decide, I know we're going to go to the polls, but I think being very intentional about how we define public safety and what really creates public safety. And so we believe that if you have housing, if you have healthcare, if you have jobs, if you have childcare, that creates thriving communities and true public safety. So I'll leave it there. And yeah, exactly. And we'll roll to the poll. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, John, and hi to the baby. Well, we're going to go on to the survey polls, and the first question is, which of the two priorities is the most important to you? Again, you have the poll links on the chat, and if you want to join, you are joining from your phone. You can go ahead and type menti.com, menti.com, and enter the code 64948799. Thank you. I'm gonna give it maybe 15 more seconds and we'll move on to the next question. All right, thank you so much. So it looks like so far expansion of office of ODR has been is winning it. All right, so let's move on to the next question. So which third issue do you think we should prioritize? So John provided 2 priorities. Which other ones do you think we should prioritize that were not mentioned here? All right, so we have Care First. What is the plan since funds were diverted from the sheriff? Care First has created a void in our community. From the community, Care First has no plan other than defunding the police with no, and we also have supportive employment. We have homelessness. We have gangs in the sheriff department. We have even more youth development. We have decriminalizing poverty, fines and fees. We have jobs for formerly incarcerated folks. We have greater support services, prioritize programs against human trafficking and saving our girls. Okay. Okay. Thank you all so much for your responses, and you can, still respond and provide, use the poll. Even though we move on to the next slide, at the end of this event, our team will collect all that information for our, purposes. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to move on to the next policy area, which is homelessness and housing. And Isela, it's your show.
Thank you all. And I'm Isela Gracian. I serve as Senior Deputy on Housing, Homelessness, and Planning. We can go to the next slide. So for housing here in LA County, this is definitely our crisis is decades in the making, and it is really an opportunity for us at the county, along with all of the cities in our region, to work collaboratively in increasing our housing options. For every 1 temporary housing or bed that we have, we need 5 permanent options to be able to get to a housing system that really functions for everybody. At the county, we have our homelessness initiative, which is what houses all of our housing programs. This is in addition, and some of these are shared with the Los Angeles Housing Authority, the LAHSA. So here, what we're going to talk about is the county's programs. Within our housing system and our homelessness system, we have had a strong focus on the service delivery. And as part of the Housing First model with Supervisor Mitchell authored at the state, making the state a housing first, as well as authoring a motion at the county to ensure that we continue to be a housing first model. It's really about housing and services together. And we know that we will get to a place of having a functional housing system when we can prevent people from falling into homelessness. Currently, the 3 top populations that are represented in our homelessness are people and young people that are exiting foster care, folks that are exiting incarceration, folks that are exiting medical care, and we have the 4th largest growing representation with seniors. So we've prioritized within the county's homelessness initiative, which is where the Measure H dollars are housed, in addition to other funds that the county receives, around increasing those housing options for people experiencing homelessness. Out of over $600 million that we have in the homelessness initiative budget, between permanent housing and interim housing options, a little over 74% of that budget goes towards those housing options, because we're really elevating that prevention aspect of people falling into homelessness. Another area of priority for our office and for Supervisor Mitchell is around the countywide RV pilot program. So this has been and continues to be where we receive the #1 calls from our district. So as of right now, within the homeless initiative budget, we have an initial $14 million that have been approved in this next fiscal year to be able to move to implementation for the countywide RV pilot program. This is a 2-year initiative where at least 500 people residing in RVs will be engaged. with a goal of being able to dismantle about 900 RVs over the span of the countywide RV pilot program. And we, our team, myself, along with Lily Sofiani, our Assistant Deputy on Homelessness, have been working with the Homelessness Initiative to be able to kick off this program in our district in East Gardena. And we look forward to sharing out some more details on that in the next few weeks when we're able to have all the timeline together. And then from there, we're really going to grow and expand it across the entire county. With that, I'm going to pause. I know there's a lot more to talk about within homelessness and housing, and we're doing highlights here. And I'll turn it back to Kofi for our polls.
Thank you. So next we're moving on to the polls. So which of the two issues that Isela just highlighted is the most important to you? Again, the poll link is on the chat. And if you are joining from your cell phone, you can go on to menti.com, MENTI.com, and enter the code 64948799. So the two options are increasing housing options for people experiencing homelessness and countywide RV pilot program. And so far, by a wide margin, increasing housing options for people experiencing homelessness is winning it. All right, so we're going to go on to the next slide. And Isela talked about two issues. Is there a third one that you think we should think about or know about or focus on? Thank you. So we have the county needs a well-funded emergency eviction prevention program. Seniors and youth are at the highest risk due to income instability. We have foster youth transitioning, preventing homelessness, support housing providers, racial disparities, increase affordable housing for seniors, increase subsidies to assist people before they become homeless, streamline countywide ADU permitting, it's terrible, foster youth transitioning, increase funding for tiny homes. Thank you. You can continue to enter your responses on the surveys, even though we move on, because at the end of this event, we will collect all that information for our purposes and to know what the community thinks or our audience today thinks. So we're going to move on to the next policy deputy, who is our arts and culture deputy, Chris Hassan. Chris, it's your show.
Thank you, Kofi, and thank you everyone for choosing to spend your evening with us. If we could go to the next slide. Oh, and I apologize. My name is Chris Hassan, and I'm Supervisor Mitchell's Deputy for Arts and Culture and Justice. Going into our priorities, our first priority is expanding the organizational grants program. This is a grant that provides flexible funding for arts organizations to support costs not typically allowed by other grants, especially for small organizations in underserved communities that are historically locked out of traditional arts funding. After several years of hard work from community advocates, the board finally took first steps last year by funding additional support for grant administration. The goal is to double the size of the grant, which would require about $4.5 million in additional ongoing funding, which would be phased in over multiple years. We encourage anyone who is interested to check out lacountyarts.org for information on the county's arts grants, and I will drop that link into the chat later. Our second priority is the creation of an expansion space for the Los Angeles County Museum of Art at Magic Johnson Park. This project is the next step in bringing the museum and its programs to the community, enabling LACMA to share the benefits of its assets and programs more equitably. It's a unique opportunity to support and continue building out a cultural hub in South LA, an enhanced space for community members to enjoy and come together. Community discussions have been held over the past several years, and ongoing funding will be needed to support operations and programs. And with that, I think we can go to the polls.
Thank you so much, Chris. So of the two issues that Chris just presented, which ones is a priority to you? And the two options are: one, organizational grants program, and two, LACMA at Magic Johnson Park. And so far, out of the now 18, now 29 responses, the first option has the most votes. All right. Again, you can continue to populate your responses or make your selections while we move on to the next slides. So the next one is, which arts and culture issue do you think we should prioritize that Chris has not mentioned? Not seeing anything, so hey. Looks like a response is coming. Yes. So we have expand existing parks. And our parks senior deputy will be talking shortly also. Expanding parks after dark, beautification projects in the district, getting more funding for the arts, the La Brea Tar Pit, promotion of street art, increased funding for art and well-being for providers who work with youth, parks that are lacking art and culture and justice issues, alternatives of policing and funding programs that will impact culture for the better, provide additional public spaces. All right, again, you can continue to populate those surveys, even though we move on to the next slides, because our team will use those responses for our purposes. So now we're moving on to the Human Services and Child Welfare Senior Deputy, Dr. Kelvin Driscoll, who will address you now.
Hey, thanks, Kofi. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate, as my colleagues have said tonight, y'all spending Monday night with us after a holiday weekend. So appreciate your time and dedication to budgeting tonight. Kofi, I'll take the next slide. So two areas for child welfare that we're really zeroing in on. I want to talk very broadly about the supervisor's prevention efforts. And I can tell you one of the things that I really enjoyed hearing tonight, you've heard from Yolanda, you heard from John, you've heard from Carolyn around really trying to make sure that we lift families. And the supervisor is very clear-eyed about making sure that the county doesn't continue to criminalize poverty. And so what that means is that we have to move a lot of those services out of our child welfare system and into a prevention infrastructure and framework that really puts us upstream to make sure that when families need help, that they're not turning to the child welfare system to provide that help. And we're really going big and going broad here. And so it means that we have to dedicate a significant number of resources to setting up that infrastructure. And so that's job and priority number one in our child welfare and human services space. And then you've heard the supervisor and Kofi just talk about the current fiscal posture of the state. And also we are seeing some cuts that are currently happening even on our CalFresh, for example, from the federal level. And so budget advocacy is going to be really important around preserving the social safety net and a lot of those programs that really put food on the table, Medi-Cal services, for example, making sure we have those outreach dollars to make sure that for those who need to have their Medi-Cal redetermined, that we have resources and folk out in the community who are helping them to understand what it is that they need to do to keep those benefits. And so those are the two priorities for us that we're really focused on in the human services and child welfare space, and looking forward to hearing y'all feedback. Kofi, we'll toss back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Driscoll. Now we're moving on to the questions. And the first survey is, which of the two policy items for budget priority that were presented, which of the two is the most important to you? The first option is Office of Prevention Services funding. And the second option is preserving state support and funding to continue the quality of human services programs. So far, we have 10 responses, 11, 12, and the latter option is winning. All right, thank you. And again, you can continue to, the link to the poll is in the chat, so you can go on there to participate in the poll. All right, so moving on to the next question. Which third issue do you think we should prioritize? Is there any issue in the human services and child welfare policy area that you think we should think about? All right, so we have CalFresh and week support. We have parenting classes. We have partnerships with local faith-based organizations. Foster youth job training. Job placement for system-involved youth, not just job training. Okay, and foster youth prioritized in all agencies. Thank you all so much for all those responses. We so far have 10, 12. Okay, please continue to provide responses, even though we're moving on to the next slide. So now we're moving on to the next, which is our environmental justice Senior Deputy Laura Mureda. Laura, it's your show.
Thanks, Kofi. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Murayda. I'm Senior Deputy for Environmental Justice. That includes issues such as parks, climate and resilience, water resources, and things like trash and sewer services that the county offers residents. So today I am going to go over our priorities for the coming budget year. And as you might expect, one of the biggest priorities for our office and for the county and really for everyone in this moment is the issue of climate change and resilience and equity. And the board has passed bold policies to curb the impacts of climate change. And this includes phasing out oil drilling, as well as ensuring that our federal dollars coming in through the Infrastructure Act are being spent towards our climate goals and being spent equitably. Also standing up the Climate Resilience Initiative, which the supervisor worked on with Supervisor Kuehl. So those are just some of the initiatives that we have in the works at the county. But where we're at this point is really needing to build our leadership and capacity to be able to implement these initiatives across various departments. And so what we need is actual staff capacity. And in this budget, we have leadership, high-level staff that are needed to lead the Climate Resilience Initiative, our Just Transition Task Force through the Office of Oil and Gas, as well as the Office of Climate Health. And so we're hoping to really have that bold leadership at the county in order to be able to implement these important policies and programs in our county. Our other priority is really operationalizing park equity. The county has done a lot of great work in creating a framework for prioritizing investments in high need communities. But operationalizing investment also looks like thinking about how we're staffing our parks, thinking about ways to ensure we're providing adequate customer service and access, for example, for seniors who may need additional help getting into programs, or those with abilities who may need help getting into what's increasingly becoming online registration for our programs. So in this budget, we have to build back the budget for park staffing to have adequate customer service and really improve community partnerships and access. Finally, we also have additional funding for operating Irvin Magic Johnson Park. We heard a little bit about the park in Chris's presentation. This is a gem of a park in our area, and we know that there's so much more that can be done with this space as a community hub and asset. And so we want to ensure that ongoing funding is provided both for Magic Johnson Park as well as Wishing Tree Park, which is a new park that will be opening later this year that we're very excited about in West Carson. So we need to ensure that we're continuing to invest in staffing and operations equitably in order to achieve park equity. And that's it for me. So I'll turn it over to Kofi and excited to get your feedback. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Laura. All right. So which of the two issues that Laura discussed is the most important to you? We have two options. The first one is increasing climate equity and resilience. And the second one is expanding access to parks and programming. Again, we have the links in the chat if you're joining from your computer or your cell phone. All right, so far we have expanding access to parks and programming. Thank you for continuing to provide your responses. And as we move on to the next slide, so which other issue in the environmental justice policy area do you think we should think about or focus on? So more funding for shuttle buses between communities and metro stations to ensure public transit use that reduces air pollution. So one of the responses. Partnering with Caltrans to convert shipping container sites to green spaces. Increase funding to South Los Angeles wetlands and South LA Park. There are few parks in the historic South Central area. More public transportation, more recycling centers, climate change, air and water pollution, clean air and water. Thank you so much, and thank you for continuing to provide your responses while we'll move on to the next slide. And this time we have our Constituent Services Director, Sonia Lopez. Sonia, it's your show. All right,
Sonia, you're on mute.
Sonia, you're on mute?
Can I be heard now?
Yes, got you.
I'll start all over. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us in this very important topic of conversation. My name is Sonia Lopez. I'm the Director of Constituent Engagement. My team represents the supervisor in the district, and I do extend an invitation for each of our attendees to visit our website and check out our team. I do have two topics to talk about: the services to unincorporated communities. You know, the Board of Supervisors provides the municipal services to the unincorporated areas that cities will typically provide to their constituents. And my goal for this year is to make sure that the departments have enough resources to provide those services directly and more effectively to the community. And I'm here to support senior deputies with their policy recommendations. Our office has been tracking top issues throughout the second district, from street safety to the county-wide RV pilot program, access to mental health, small business support, just to name a few. And our second bullet point that we want to elaborate on is on expansion of food insecurity programs in the second district. Food insecurity among adults and children in the second district increased during the COVID-19 pandemic. In response, our office, in partnership with LA Food Bank and the LA County Chief Sustainability Office, began to host food distributions once a month in our heaviest food insecure areas. And 2 years after our office began these distributions, the necessity is still present. The demand for food is greater than the availability. You know, for example, our events, each food distribution runs out of food prior to the time our event is scheduled to end. And this year, we'd like to navigate on how to expand the resources brought to us by the CSO and parks. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for closing us out today. So which of the two issues that Sonia provided or discussed here is the most important to you? First one is services to unincorporated communities, and the second one is expansion of food insecurity programs in the second district. So far, we have a little over 20 responses. All right, thank you. And so far, it looks like expansion of food insecurity programs in the second district is winning it. All right, then let's go to the next. question, which is in the constituent services policy area, which third issue do you think we should prioritize? Which issues are directly impacting you and your neighbors that you think our constituent services team should be aware of and for our office to kind of look into? Answers are trickling in. Increase access to affordable farmers markets and community gardens. Create a technology dashboard that shows where the budget funds were spent by communities. Need constituent services representatives. Equitable services for the district require a larger outreach program. Connection with CBOs to help clean the streets in the county. Assistant for those landowners to grow food. Reduce food trucks in Rancho East Dominguez. Unincorporated areas seem to be more of concern for food security. All right, thank you all for continuing to provide your responses. And again, I'm going to reiterate the thoughts and from our colleagues, starting with the supervisor, for thanking you to spend, for thanking you about sharing your Monday evening with us. I'm sure all of you had a long day at work, but you decided to be active participants in the policies that impact you. Thank you for being aware. Thank you for providing your feedback. Thank you for sharing with us and making us aware of what's happening out there in the community. We strongly encourage you guys to continue to reach out to us. We have our website. You have all of our information out there, and we're more than happy to hear from you and continue working with you. We are here to serve you. A lot of the information that we share today with the video and other are from the CEO's website, so you can refer back to it later. Again, I want to reiterate my gratitude to you for spending time with us and for listening to us. Thank you to my team. Team Mitchell, you're amazing. Blessed to be here. Thank you all, and you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful evening. And don't forget